Welcome to another section in the Introduction to Python Programming Language. In this section, you will learn how to write a user-defined function. First of all, let's define what a function is. A function extends the functionality of Python programming. It means that you can enhance the functionality of Python programming by introducing your own function. Function is a block of organized and reusable code that is used to perform a particular task. A function is also a piece of code that runs whenever you reference it. There are many inbuilt functions in Python, which include a print function, an input function, a type function, and also a learn function. I know that you have been using some of these in the previous videos. So in this section, you will learn how you can create your own function, which will help you to perform a particular task. There are two basically type of functions in Python. The first one is a user-defined function, and the second is an inbuilt function. What is a user-defined function? A user-defined function is a function that you write by yourself, while an inbuilt function is a function that is pre-installed or predefined in Python. Functions allows us to automate a repetitive task in a powerful way instead of doing copy and paste. Writing your function has different advantages. For example, you can give a function name that make your code easier to understand and easily remembered. As something changes in your function, you can easily update that code in one place instead of you editing many codes in different places. A function also helps you to avoid repetition and also make your code reusable. Function improves maintainability of your code. So it means that you'll be able to maintain your code with the help of a function. When should you write a function? You should consider writing a function whenever you copy a block of code more than 2 times. For example, let's say that I want to add two numbers together, and this can be done in different places. Instead of writing it one by one, I can actually write a function, and this function will be called whenever I need it. This is how Python function syntax looks like. As you can see, before you can write your function, you need to know what this keyword is all about. And this keyword is called def. And this is the first thing you will do whenever you are writing your function. So this is def. A def, then here will be your function name, the name that you want to call your function. And here is the parameter, that is the input of your function or what your function will accept. Then the remaining codes here will be different codes that will make your function to work. Before you can create a function, you must follow all these rules. As I said before, this is how Python function looks like when you are writing it. Number one is that a function must begin with a keyword def, and this will follow by the function name. As you can see, here is the function name. Then after the function name, there should be a parenthesis. As you can see, here is a parenthesis. Then the input of your function, which we call parameters. After that, there should be a colon. As you can see, here is a colon. Then, like if else statement, for loop, while loop, there must be an indentation. So which means that when you are writing your function, you must be careful about the indentation, because in user defined function, you must also indent your function. So these are what you need to follow. And also, while naming your function, remember that our function name also follows variable naming convention, which means that there should not be any space in your function name. There should not be any special character whatsoever in naming your function. Another rule in creating a function is that any parameters, which is also called argument, should be placed inside your parentheses, which we have here. As you can see, here I put parameters. So under the parentheses is where you put all your parameters or argument of your function. A Python function can contain a parameter and can contain more than one parameter. And if your function has more than one parameter, then you need to separate each parameter or an argument with a comma. So you will see the practical experience of it when we get to the lab session. We have talked about the colon, which marks the end of the function header. Here is your function header, and there must be a colon. Then there could be an optional string, which you call docstring or documentation string. This is like a description of what your function is doing, although it is optional. Then in the body of your function, you have to put different codes which will help you to perform a particular task with your function. For example, here is a user-defined function. This function is adding two numbers together. As you can see, various rules that we just talked about. The first one is your keyword, which is def, and followed by the function name, which is add. So which means that the name of our function here is add, and here are the parameters of this function. As you can see, x and y. Those are the inputs of our function add. And also, as you can see, here is the body of the function. Those are the codes that will allow our function to work. As you can see, we have print here, and we have the f string here, and here is talking about argument are x and y. And then we have a return key. This return key return our results. So as you can see, this function takes two arguments x and y, and then it will print argument are whatever you put here. Maybe x is 2 and y is 3. So this one will just print that argument are 2 and 3. And at the end, it will return the result of 2 and 3. That is 2 plus 3, and the answer will be 5. As you can see, after the header, we have a colon, and we also have our function code, which are all these. And this return key return our statement, the output of our function. So let's go to the lab session where you will see all of this in action. You can follow along with me by opening this Jupyter Lab notebook called Python function. Otherwise, you can create a new script and follow along with me. In this first example, we have our def keyword, and here is the name of our function. As you can see, this function is adding A and B together. So A is the first input or first parameter, and B is also another parameter. Here we have our docstring. As you can see, you can easily read it as this function adds two numbers together, and the return key is returning the result for us. So let me run it. Now I have run it. So if I want this function to work, I have to call the name of the function. For example, the name of the function is sum two numbers. As you can see, sum two numbers. As you know, every function must have a parenthesis, and that is what we have here. And inside the parenthesis is what you put the function parameters. And in this case, our parameters are A and B. And so we need to put values for our A and B. So A is the first number and B is the second number that we want to add. Now I can just say that A is equal to, let me say I want to add 6 and 13 together. So my first number will be 6, and the second number, which is B, will now be 13, and then I can run it. Now it's returning 19 for me. As you know, 6 plus 13 is equal to 19. One good thing about a function is that it is reusable. So now if I call this same function again on, let's say I want to add 1 and 7 together, I can just say A is equal to 1 and B is equal to 7, and I close my parentheses and I run it. Now it has added 1 and 7 together, and the result is 8. Remember that we must indent our function very well. Although Jupyter Lab notebook will help us to indent it. But let's say that while you create this function, it's still the same function, def sum two number. After the colon, we have the def string. After the colon, we have the docstring. As you know, docstring is not important, so I can just delete it. So after I delete this, you will note that this y here supposed to start in the position of s, but now I did not indent it very well. So if I run this now, see what happened. So if I run it now, see what happened. I have an error called indentation error. So if you don't indent your code very well, you may have an error like this. So let me correct this error. So what I will just do is to just put it in this place and then press enter key on my keyboard, and now it's well indented. As you can see, I have saved the result of A and B into Y, and then I use return to return the value of Y. See, now my code runs. Now let me now use this code to see the sum of 9 and 13. I can just use my function name, sum two numbers, and then put the value of A. The value of A is 7, and the value of B is 13, and then I close it. Now let me run it. As you can see, 7 plus 13 is equal to 20. Here is another function. This function will first of all tell us what we are summing together, and it will then give us the result of the addition output. As you can see here, we have the docstring, although it's not important, and with the help of print formatting, we have f string and we have a placeholder. x and another placeholder y. So this value of x that we put here will be placed here, and the value of y here will be placed here. And at the end, we have another placeholder which we add the two numbers that we put here. So let me run this. Now the function has been assigned, and then before I can get the result, I have to use the name of the function and put the parameters there. Now if I just say add 2 and 6, as you can see, the result is 8. 2 is telling me the sum of 2 and 6 is 8. You may be asking, I did not include x and I did not include y. So the reason is that even though you don't include all these parameters by calling their names, Python will automatically assign 2 to x and 6 to y. So let me run it for you so that you can see it clearly. Let's say add x is equal to, let's say 8, and y is equal to 9. As you can see, it's telling me the sum of 8 and 9 is 17. If I don't include x and y, so automatically it will still do the result for me. As you can see, the sum of 1 and 4 is 5. So that is exactly what this one is talking about. In a user-defined function, you may also define a default argument or parameter. For example, I have a function called printinfo. This function is accepting two parameters. The first one is age and the second one is gender. And after that, it will print the gender information and the age information of a particular person. As you can see here in my function, I've already defined the default value of age to be 25 and the default value of gender to be a female. So if I run this now, without adding any parameters in my function, okay, I will get the result. As you can see, there is no parameters in this function name printinfo. So if I run this now, see what I have. It's telling me you are a female and your age is 25 years. And let's say that I just say my age is 27. As you can see, my age is 27. See what I have. It's telling me you are a female and your age is 27. As you can see here, I did not put the value of gender in this function. But because I have assigned a default value for my gender, so my function is taking the default value of gender to be female. And since I only added the value of age, and that is why the age value is changed here. So let's see another example where I'm going to assign a value for my age and a value for my gender. So in this case, let's say now I am 27 and my gender is male. So if I run this now it's telling me you are a male and your age is 27 years. Let's see the third example. This example, as you can see, the name of the function is student info. And we have how many parameters? We have 5 parameters. And they are name, age, gender, course code, and country. We have a function here called print, which will print all these. For example, information about a student taking course code course. Our course code is what we have here as parameter. And with the help of f-string, we are having a placeholder that whatever we supply here will affect this place. We also have a print function here where we have name. and here we take the parameter that we supply for name. We also have another print function, age, that will take the value of age that we assign to this parameter, and also for gender, and also for country. And at the end of the function, okay, you can now use our function, which is student info, and we can now assign different values to all these parameters. So in my own case here, I want to get the student information for a student whose name is Zula. She is 18 years old. She is a female and she's taking CS22 and she's from Ethiopia, as you can see. Now, if I run this now, see what I have. I have this as the result of my function. It's printing information about student taking CS22 course. The name of the student is Zula. She is 18 years old. She is a female and she comes from Ethiopia. Let's see another student information whose name is Safari. He is 21 years old. He's a male. He's also taking CS21 course. But in this case, he is from Kenya. So let's run it. Now, as you can see, so I will advise you to try this and put your own information there and see what will happen. So I'm doing it for myself. You can also do it for your own self too. Here I have the function name student info, then a parenthesis. I press tab key on my keyboard, and let's say I have the name of the parameter called name, and this time around the name of the student is Ezekiel. Ezekiel is 17 years old, as you can see, 17 years old. Ezekiel is a male. Remember, male is a character, is a string data type. Ezekiel is taking CS22. Ezekiel is from Nigeria. Let's run it. Now, here is Ezekiel information. So try it for yourself and let's see what you have. We also have another example 4. What this function is doing is that it will ask for a user to enter a number, and this function will now check whether that number is an even number or an odd number. As you can see, the body of the function, we have if-else statement. So first of all, we have the integer and the input function. So here, the input function will ask the user to enter a particular number. And as you know, in the previous video, whenever you use input function, the information you are taking from the user will be a string data type. And since the number we want to check must be numeric, either an integer or a float, so we are now converting the result of our string to an integer data type. After we have collected the information from the user, then we now write a function called odd or even checker. So this function name is taking the number that we have collected from a user, and then we are using if-else statement. As you can see, here is if-else statement. Now we have the number saying that if number is divisible by 2, then such a number is an even number. Otherwise, such a number is an odd number. remember that whenever a number is divisible by 2, then that number must be an even number. And if a number is divisible by 2, then the result must be 0. And that is what we are using comparison operator to check here with the help of if-else statement. So let's run this code. Now it's asking me to enter a number to check for odd or even. So let me say I want to check for 1. Is 1 an odd or even number? What do you think? It's an odd number, right? Great. As you can see, our function says that 1 is an odd number. That is good. So let's try it for another number. Let's rerun this again. Okay, so let's enter another number. So in this case, I want to check for 10. Is 10 an odd or even number? So let me run it. My function is saying that 10 is an even number, which is true because 10 is easily divisible by 2. As you can see, the result will be 0. And that is why this statement got printed. Let's see the last example before we end this lesson. Here we have a variable called name, which is taking an information from a user. And that information is a number. A user will enter any number, and this will now check whether it's an even or odd. It's like what we did here, but as you can see, before this function, we first of all ask our user to enter a number, and that is what we are doing here. So now, whatever we have in this place is what our function will check. So now let me run it so that you can see. So now my function is asking me to check whether a number is even or not. So let me just put 27 there and let's see. So if I run this now, see what I have. So this is telling me that the number I entered is an odd number. So let's run it again. As you can see, we have built a smart program that can check whether a number is an odd or even number. Let's do it for 100. What do you think? Is 100 an even or odd number? Let's run it. Now this is saying that 100 is an even number. Welcome back. In this video, we will continue from where we stopped. Here, we'll be using different return statements in our function. Whenever you are using more than one return statement in your function, you must be very careful because whenever one of the return statements is true, your function will terminate and the result that is true will get executed. Let's see an example here. In this example, we want to check whether a number is an even or odd number. As you can see, we have two return statements here. The first one is checking whether a number is even. As you know, a number is even whenever it is divisible by 2. So if a number is divisible by 2, then this function will return even. Otherwise, this function will return odd. So let me run it. Now, as you can see, 14 is an even number. So let me run it again for 19. As you can see here, I'm including the argument. As you know, it is optional. Now, this is an odd number. Since 19 is an odd number, then we have this. Let's see another example where we can take our function creation into another level. In this example, we are using for loop inside our function. The name of our function is list benefits. As you know, there are many benefits of a list. Okay, so now this function is taking those benefits. Since a for loop must have an object to iterate on, so our object here will be the list of strings. As you can see, here is a list of strings and we have many strings here. So if you run this now, we are going to get the result as this. So what is happening underneath? We have a function called list benefit, and here is the argument of our function. In this case, the argument is a list, and now we are looping over this list. As you can see, for I in benefits, print I. So every benefit that we put here, our function will loop over it, and each benefit will get printed. So let me run it. Now we have it here. As you can see, more organized code, more readable code, easier code reuse, allowing programmers to share and connect code together. And here are the benefits of a list. Before we stop this video, let's see another dimension of a function. In this case, we will be learning what is called anonymous function. Whenever you hear anonymous, anonymous means something that is not known. So in this case, we don't have a name for our function. We are just using it in a scope. Anonymous function doesn't have a name, and it is not declared in a standard way of defining a function. As you know, before we can create a function, we have to use the keyword def. But in the case of anonymous, there is no standard function form. So we only declare it, and that is all. And then we can now use it in the scope. So the syntax for anonymous function is this. So first of all, we use a function keyword called lambda. Then after lambda, we have to now put our arguments, the arguments of that anonymous function. Then after that, then the output or the result or the expression that we want that our anonymous function to return is what we put here. One tip: anonymous function is also known as lambda function. As you can see, we are using lambda keyword. So the lambda keyword is executed and the result is then returned. Let's see how we can use anonymous function in action. So in this case, although we said that anonymous function doesn't have a name, because when you get to another module where we'll be using pandas, you will know how this anonymous function really works. But here, I'm just introducing you to how it works. So here, I put a name called square, okay? And then I put my anonymous function in it. As you can see, lambda, and here is the function argument, which is x. And what I want this function to return, as you can see, I put a colon there because a colon must separate the argument and the expression together. So here, this is the argument of the anonymous function, and then I'm using this argument here to find the square root of whatever I put there. So let me run it. Now I have run it. So to use the anonymous function, I can just use this variable that I temporarily store this function to. So now I have this. As you can see, I will just call the name of the anonymous function, that is square. Okay, and what is the argument in this function? It is x. Okay, I can just say x, then what I want x to be. No, my x should be 2. And what is the square of x? I just run it and I get 4. As you can see, the difference between anonymous function and the normal function is the way they are declared. Anonymous function does not have the keyword def. Anonymous function has the keyword lambda, and it has an argument and the expression, while the standard function must be declared in the proper way. Def, name of the function, the parameter, the colon, the indentation, and you put all those formulas that will help your function to work. So let's use this anonymous function again to get the square of 9. As you know, the square of 9 is 81. Now I have the result. So let's see another example. So in this case, I want to multiply two numbers together, but I want to use anonymous function to do that. As I said before, you don't need to actually use this to actually define a variable that will store the value of your anonymous function. But for you to see how it really works, that is why I just put this variable to store it temporarily for me. As you can see, I have my lambda, that is the function that is the function keyword for anonymous function. Then here are the two arguments that this anonymous function takes, x and y. And here is the expression, which means that I'm multiplying the two numbers together. So when I run it now, it works. And to use it, for in this case, I just have to call the temporary name, which is product. And then I put those arguments there. As you know, the two arguments are x and y. So I can just say the first number is 6 and the second number is 7. And what is 6 times 7? 6 times 7 is 42. And that is what I have here. Let's try it for 2 and 8 again. So if I run this, I have 16. Now we have come to the end of this module. Now we have come to the end of this video. But before we close this video, let's summarize what we learned in this unit. In this unit, we learn how to create a user-defined function. We know that there are two types of function in Python. The first one is predefined function, which are the functions that are pre-installed or pre-created in Python. So the second function is what we call user-defined function. And this is the function that you create by yourself. And this function can only work for you except you send the syntax or the code to other people to reuse. And we said that whenever we see ourselves doing copy and paste more than 2 times, then we should write a function for that. Okay? And we learn different ways at which we can create a function in Python. Thank you so much, and we have come to the end of this video. See you in the other section. Bye.